This looks amazing, right? Yeah, it does. I think so. What do you think? Do you want to build this over the weekend? Yes? Yeah, before we go into the build, let me share some details about this planter. As you can see, this is a L-shaped planter and doesn't require any potting soil. For me, the design is basically to use plants in a pot. That way I can change whenever I want. And I'm also using a plastic saucer which will prevent any leaks or stains on the surface. This whole build is made out of 2x4 and some cedar pickets. I painted the 2x4s in black to give more protection because it's going to live outdoors and there'll be a lot of sun, rain and like cold weather, whatnot. I have a detailed cut list with instructions if you're interested. Now let me show you how you can build this over the weekend. Let's build the frame first. Buy 4 2x4s for the frame. This is the first cut list for the frame. The first cut list is not final. Make all your cuts half an inch more than the final dimensions. After the first cut, you should have the quantities as shown. 2x4s are not actually 2 inches in thickness or 4 inches in width. They measure 1.5 inches in thickness and 3.5 inches in width. Use a circular saw or a miter saw to make the first cuts. Measure as per the cut list and make your cuts. When you buy 2x4s, try to get 2x4s that are straight and without knots or holes. As you need only 4, try to spend some time getting the good ones. This will save time when you build. This step is optional. If you don't like the rounded corners of 2x4s and if you have a planer, you can use a planer to remove the rounded corners. Again, this step is optional. Now you have all frame pieces cut to rough dimensions. Now it's time to cut them to the final dimensions. You can use a circular saw or a miter saw. For accuracy, the miter saw will be better. You can place a stop block and cut to the final dimensions. Stop block need not be fancy. As you can see, I'm using a scrap wood and a weight for stop block. Time for final cuts. The table saw is a preferred tool for this cut. Place your fence 1/4 of an inch from the blade for the first cut. The first cut will remove the factory edge and will give a clean edge. After cutting the clean edge on one side, place your fence 1.5 inches from the blade and use the side with the clean edge to cut the frame pieces. Basically, you are using one 2x4 for getting 2 pieces, which is economical and the planter will look sleek. Once you finish the cuts, you'll have these quantities to build the frame. In this cut list, you can see how 2x4s are used. If you follow this plan, you'll need only 4 2x4s. Now it's time to join the frame. We are going to join the frame in multiple steps. The first step is to join the outer frame. This frame requires two 34.5 inch pieces and two 32 inch pieces. You can screw these to join, glue is not required. I'm not sure why I used glue. Glue does not hold any strength here because you're gluing end grain to edge grain. I did join these with screws to secure them. You can see that later in the video. The next step is to join the second outer frame. This frame will have one 32 inch and two 34.5 inch pieces. I used glue for this join as well, but later secured it with screws. In this join, I glued 34.5 inch pieces to only one 32 inch piece and used the other 32 inch piece for clamping pressure. Now it's time to join two outer frames together. I used glue, which is optional, and later secured it with screws. Clamps will help to secure the frames during glue up or when you drive screws. We finished joining the planter's outer frame. Now we need to add the center support pieces. The gap between the top and support pieces is 10 inches. Using a couple of 10 inch scrap pieces will help to line everything as per the dimensions. Use a speed square to draw lines for screws. Speed square can also be used to check if the corners are 90 degrees to each other. Once everything is aligned, use clamps to secure while driving screws. Always drill pilot holes before driving the screws. I used 2.5-inch exterior screws. Repeat the same process to join the other centerpiece to the outer frame. The centerpieces are 34.5 inches in length and you need two of them, one for each side of the outer frame. Now I am securing the glue joints with screws. If you have used screws in the first place, you can skip this step. The next step is to build the end frames and join them to the outer frame. You need two end frames. The blue sections in the picture are end frames and the yellow section is the outer frame. You will join blue frames to the yellow frame to finish the outer structure for the planter. For the end frame, you need one 32-inch piece and three 10.5-inch pieces on each side. To join, follow the same process as before. Use screws, clamps when needed, and a speed square to check the squareness. The next step is to build the inner frame and then join it to the outer frame. When you are making the inner frame, do not join the center pieces of the inner frame head. Join only the top and bottom. For the inner frame, you need one 32-inch piece and six 22.5-inch pieces. Join the inner frame with screws, use clamps and speed square for accuracy as needed. The inner frame you are going to build is highlighted in yellow. Now join the inner frame to the outer frame. Use clamps to secure and then drill pilot holes before driving screws. Once the inner frame is joined, you need to join the center pieces to the inner frame. Use clamps and a level to check if everything is square. Once aligned with other center pieces, drill pilot holes and drive screws. To finish the frame assembly, add two more support stretchers. These support stretchers will help to support the bottom. If you are using 2x4s, painting is the best option because the planter will sit outside and will be exposed to sun, rain, cold weather and humidity. Paint will give more protection. When using spray paint, try to do in multiple coats. If you see any area that is not fully covered with paint, do not overspray. Let it dry and cover it with paint in next coat. For panels, use cedar pickets. Cedar pickets are not expensive and they're good for outdoors. I bought red cedar dog ear pickets from Lowe's. They are 5.5 inches in width and 6 feet in length. I squared one edge by cutting the dog ear side on the miter saw. Then used a planer to remove the rough surface on only one side. If you don't have a planer, you can use sander to remove the rough surface of the cedar pickets. The next step is to assemble the inside panels. 5 cedar pickets are needed for the inside panel. Follow the cut list and placement plan. Assemble these panels on the middle frame and the bottom frame. Use screws to join panels to the frame. I used 1.5-inch cabinet screws with washer head. The washer head screws will give a good look to the planter. You can also use regular screws. Once the assembly is finished, the inner frame should be like this. The next step is to assemble the panels to the outer frame. 5 cedar pickets are needed for this assembly. Follow the cut list and placement plan. Place the planed or sanded surface of the cedar picket facing you. Use screws to join the frame. I used 1.5-inch cabinet screws with washer head. The washer head screws will give a good look to the planter. You can also use regular screws. Once the assembly is finished, the top frame should be like this. To add some extra protection to the planter, I added furniture feet to the legs. I got these from Amazon and these are suited for outdoor furniture. I'll leave a link in the description if you are interested. For the finish, I applied couple of coats of Thompson's water seal in clear. This is my go-to finish for outdoor projects. You can apply this easily with a foam brush. The top has some uncovered spots, so I sprayed paint to cover those spots. I used a blue tape to cover the areas which does not require paint. I think this planter turned out great. It has the modern look and is less messier because we are using planting pots and not filling planter with potting soil. I'm going to use the top of the planter to have the plants which requires full sun, and this area you can use it as a storage, or you can have some plants which requires partial sun or no sun at all. It's entirely depending on your choice. You can easily modify this design and fit for your requirements and what you like. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please consider subscribing. See you next time.